Okay, if not, I'd entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
Motion to approve the agenda as presented.
I'll second.
Okay, it's been motion and second to approve the agenda as presented. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Is there any opposed? Okay, the agenda is approved. Up next, public comment. Do we have any public? I know we streamed this, I believe, onto the YouTube channel, so,
There's no comments in the chat.
okay. Thank you, Rachel. Then we move on to item 5, payables. Everybody had a chance to review those. Any questions on the payables?
I would move approval.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second to approve the payables as presented. Any further discussion? All right.
Can you just tell me the names when you guys do your motions?
Okay. This is Alan. I made the motion.
Thank
This is
you.
Chet. I seconded it.
Joe, did we,
My dog.
meeting minute? Did we miss the minute?
I think I may have, did I skip that? I apologize. Approval of the minutes. Thank you, Jim. Any questions? Everybody had a chance to review the minutes from September 9th.
Move to approve the minutes as presented.
Second, this is Alan.
Okay,
I'm sorry, that was Chet.
thank you. Any discussion on the minutes? All right, hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed to the minutes? Okay, minutes are approved. Item 6, board comments and committee reports. So the first one listed is the law TAC.
I don't know that we voted on the
Oh,
payables, Joe.
sorry. We ended up with a motion in a second though, correct?
Right.
Yes. Yes.
All right. All those in favor of that motion?
Aye.
Aye.
Is there any opposed? Okay, payables are approved. All right, so now committee reports. Do we have from LawTAC an update?
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Yes, sir.
All right, Bill. We met on the 15th. We discussed the contract and made sure that all our needs are going to be met. We discussed our concerns about the data conversion, and we have that issue worked out. We won't be overwriting good records. We discussed the Insight module. Phil has worked out a deal with Motorola if that doesn't get used, I guess, in the next year, that they can be credited back for that. So we're happy with that news. Motorola agreed to make the PIN mapping available to all law agencies and fire agencies. We discussed network traffic concerns. It's our opinion that there's going to be the same or less network traffic going to one system instead of dueling systems. Like I said, at the end of the meeting, the different member agencies agreed that this contract is going to meet our needs for law users.
Okay, thank you, Troy. Any questions for Troy? All right, if not, then I guess maybe the same update from the fire side, from the fire TAC.
Hi, I'm Sammy Brown with Cowlitz County Fire District 5, and we were also in the meeting. The fire TAC users, the fire TAC group agreed that all the modules included in the agreement were legitimate and useful, necessary, and we also agreed that due to the fact that some of these modules can be agency specific, there'd be a lot of data input by the agency. So we would need, and to make the CAD system well received, to ensure it's well received and to ensure that it's utilized to its fullest potential, we would definitely need training from Spillman, which I believe that will be offered and presented. And additionally, the big thing is that we would need continued support from Spillman to make sure the data in these modules is up to date, current, applicable through the years. So those were the needs, and I think Spillman will meet them. So the the Fire TAC group also recommends that the board moves forward with the agreement.
Okay, thank you. Any questions regarding the Fire TAC?
I have a question. This is Kurt, and it's just with regard to a comment that Troy had made regarding Insight. Can you help remind me what that module provides for? Because it sounds like we're purchasing it, but if we don't use it, we'll get a credit. And I guess I was wondering from the other side of it, what if we don't purchase it? And then later, if we need it, purchase it, I guess. It was just a question. And again, I'm trying to help determine, again, what that provided for.
So the Insight module lets us share records with neighboring agencies. The concern that the law side had was that our immediate neighbors don't currently have it. The hope is that if we have it, then other agencies in our area will also join on. That's why we're going to get this offer to try it out for a year. It is a good way, like Phil has stated his goals for regionalizing, sharing data with other agencies. So this is a module that allows us to do that in real time. And that's why my understanding, I may be speaking for Phil here, but why they've offered to basically let us try this out for a year.
So when you say other agencies, are you speaking of those outside the county?
Yes, like Lewis County,
okay.
Pacific County, any other agencies like that.
Okay, good. Thank you.
So if I might add just a little bit on that, Kurt, lots of times when you have in-progress events, there may be a minor issue in another area that somebody was pulled over for, and in a neighboring area, they get pulled over again. It may be a more serious matter, or some information became relevant to this person in the time that they were released from being detained or pulled over on the side of the road. And in these events, sometimes when you have an ongoing event that was undiscovered at first, might be discovered in a neighboring county as being a potential real bad guy, and it gives an opportunity to share that information before all that information hits all of our access systems that would have the criminal record backgrounds in it. So it might be a new bad guy, for example.
Mm-hmm. And what was the cost of this module?
That's 30,000.
Okay.
If I remember right.
Okay.
I was just going to ask, maybe I missed it on Troy's update. I know at the last meeting, Clara from Records had some, I guess, insights or questions or comments regarding it. I think she was in that meeting as well. Were all of her concerns addressed? Anything there?
Yes. Yeah, and I think Phil scrolled past it there. I think it was 23,000. But that was just, the concern was if our neighbors didn't have it, did we really need it? But if we are the link that brings everyone in, that'll actually be a big benefit for all of these counties.
Sure. Okay. No, it makes sense. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Troy. All right. Any other questions or comments at this point regarding the updates from the law and fire tax? If not, we move on to the item 7, which would be the agreements.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'd like to thank Troy and Sammy for getting that done. And it sounds like just what we need to do to move on. Thank you, guys.
I really appreciate their input as well. That was helpful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so then item 7 would be the agreements, and the first one is the Spillman purchase agreement.
And so over the past 20 minutes, staff began to work on this initiative to improve our interoperability and our CAD system. Originally, we started off working closely with Cressa. That didn't work out for all the agencies. And so I was given direction in May of this year to focus on the Spillman CAD system. And then in August was given the sole source purchasing authority to work with Spillman, Motorola Spillman Flex. And then we negotiated since that time with Motorola, and then we have that agreement before you today. Our costs for the CAD either way was about $500,000 when we had that shared system with Cressa, and this cost to us is $508,000. So our costs are very close and similar, and it's within our budget parameters within our budgeted dollars to be able to make this purchase without doing any kind of a budget amendment. And so my recommendation is for the board to make a motion to approve the purchase of this Motorola Spillman Flex product, Flex CAD.
Hey, Bill, this is Jim. Can you remind the board again, the Spillman maintenance costs were quite a bit lower, if I remember right.
Yeah, so the maintenance cost, this is for the second year of this CAD, is $46,000. So, and it has about a 2 to 4% escalator on it from year to year. So our current maintenance costs for Intergraph are about, in the neighborhood of $200,000. So the maintenance of this program is significantly less expensive, 25% of. So the ongoing costs here are also more easier to handle.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions for Phil on the Spillman purchase agreement?
If there are none, I'll move to proceed with the purchase of the Spillman system. And that's Brad Thurman.
This is Scott News. I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the agreement from Spillman. Is there any further discussion on this item? All right, hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
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 Is there any opposed? Okay, motion passes. Up next, item B under 7, which is a shared agency agreement.
So this is attached with the Spillman product, is that we need to have a shared agency agreement. The Cowlitz County since 2003 has been hosting Spillman records, and a number of modules have been added to that over the course of the years, including jail modules and other modules. This CAD module will be added to that. So as the hubbing with the county, we need to enter into this shared agency agreement that we can access the records on the hub, and that everything interties well. And so the shared agency agreement makes that takes that into account. We did change a little bit of this as far as warranty goes, is that originally it was attached to a 2003 Cowlitz County agreement, but we updated that to be with our radio consoles. And so it's with the 2019 agreement is where the warranty comes into play rather than back from 2003. And so my recommendation and staff's recommendation is for the board to approve the shared agency agreement, as it really is a required piece of the total software package that CAD Flex, Spillman Flex brings to the table.
So just a question, Sal. Now, I know, I think Kelso PD and Longview PD also are running Snowman. Do we need to have some sort of shared agreement to those as well? Or is this an overriding that covers those other cities that currently use Spillman?
Well, those agencies already have shared agency agreements specific to exactly what we're doing here. So
Okay.
their Spillman LPDs and KPDs record system has a shared agency agreement directly to the county, just the same as ours does. So the county is the hub. We're all spokes of that.
Okay. Well, I would move then that we move ahead with the shared agreement.
Second, Chet.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion on this item? All right, hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And is there any opposed? Okay, the shared agency agreement is approved. Item C would be the AdCom transition agreement.
So as part of the planning and design of the new Cowlitz 911 Center, the transition planning from Cowlitz County IT to Cowlitz 911 IT was identified as a planning gap for the new facility. And Cowlitz 911 requested RFQs from potential vendors. We received 3 responses, and 2 of those agencies ended up being interviewed. During those interviews, it became clear that both agencies had very strong skill sets in certain areas, but neither one was as strong apart. And so we asked both of those agencies to get together and to present if they'd be willing to present a final scope of work that would take both of those skill sets into consideration. And so they agreed to do that. And they're all, now we're bringing this back to the board for their consideration and approval to have entered into this agreement with AdCom, and then that other vendor is going to be a subcontractor to AdCom. And one of the advantages that I see going forward is that More Power Technology Group, who is the subcontractor on this agreement, would likely be a very strong contender for our maintenance of our new IT system, taking the place of the Cowlitz County IT. The advantage of having them involved at the very beginning here is that they know all of the parts and pieces that are part of the system. They're part of the design network. They're also be able to their installation of the network and all of those components that go into that, so that in all likelihood they would be the most favorable to continue in doing that maintenance when we go live as a standalone entity. So it'd be my recommendation to approve this phase 1 of the AdCom transition agreement. This phase 1 is take about 3 months, and it's to a maximum of just over $200,000 for that agreement. It's on pages 3 and 4 of or 2 and 3 is where that cost estimate is. So not to exceed $209,000. They gave this as a worst case scenario for phase 1. We have a potential of 5 phases. I don't know what the cost is. They were unable to estimate what the costs were going forward for those other additional phases. They couldn't really even give ballpark figures for that. So it kind of left me, gave me pause to think that we would have all these other outstanding potential costs that we would have associated with this transition. But I think that, well, I do know that we would have enough money to do this if it ended up being $200,000 for each phase, which would be potentially $1 million. And then that would be up to that 209 on this phase one, but they would expect that they would have less hours than that. What they've calculated, they just put this in as a worst case scenario. So it is the tip of the iceberg here. I don't know for sure what the additional costs are going forward, but it is, we will have a better idea as this initial planning phase is completed.
Phil, this is Brad Thurman. I had a question. This relates to IT. Will there be some expenses or need to hire somebody to actually do the radio transmission piece of this? Whether there's equipment at the new center, a radio tower? Can you comment on that or how that's factored in?
Well, this is separate from the radio tower, but the radio system, we already have a contract with Day Wireless to provide those services. At any time, we can also go out for another RFP or RFQ for when this contract with Day Wireless expires. We extended it for another year, so in all likelihood 2021 would be a good year to go out and do that radio service request for radio services. This here is what I recommended earlier on, is that it would be best to have two people, a senior IT network specialist and a helper. And each of those positions, if we were to use round numbers, probably at a minimum of $130,000 a piece as FTE. And this initial phase, we would still need to do this, but that ongoing maintenance of the system could be done as a contractor, like with More Power Technology Group, which we would get all of the skills that they have that are never centered in one person. But because they're a company with 5 people associated with it, that all of them have skill sets in managing our system, and they would all be available for doing that. In all likelihood, that number would be significantly less than having our own IT support hired as FTEs. Does that answer your question, Sheriff?
It does. I just wanted to make sure I had a clear picture on the technology, and Day Wireless is committed through getting the building opened and getting that set up and running.
No, that's actually through the architect right now. That's just the ongoing maintenance is with Day Wireless.
Okay. It's going to be addressed though as part of
So
the
our radio system is addressed separately. It's within our contract with the architect.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Phil, you said this phase one and the phases after, how many phases were they predicting? 4 or 5?
5, yes.
5. So after this, I mean, it sounds like we have a number, or, you know, a top end number not to exceed with this phase. And you said the rest of the phases are completely unknown. So this phase, after this phase, this should produce the numbers for phases 2 through 5.
Yes. This will give us a clear picture looking forward.
Okay. Just want to make sure I understood that.
And those results should be within 3 months.
Okay. Any other questions for Phil?
I have a question with regard to the timing of this. I mean, is there a need to move forward at this time with this, or might we be better to hold off until we have the new facility and equipment in place?
We need it now because in order to be operational, we need all of the business network systems installed in order to function. So there's a radio piece that's attached to the center in the architectural program that we have already been working on. But this was one of those identified gaps of that IT services and that IT network infrastructure being built into the building. So 2 separate sides of it.
Okay.
So it's the business side and all the firewalls and all the connections and everything that we need to do to run all of the computers and all the software within the building.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions? If there are none,
Helps, I unmute my mic
Okay.
here.
Go
Just a question. Now, would these folks also be working with the Spillman folks as that system comes in?
Yeah,
To help
that'll be one of the pieces that they will look at, is that what are the needs at the new center? And so absolutely, with all of our different software and all our different vendors, they'll be working with all of that. And that's some of this discovery phase that they will take on initially, is to look at what we currently have, what are we going to need in the future, and then how do we get there.
Okay.
Okay, anything else? If not, I'd entertain a motion on the transition agreement.
I would move that, this Alan, I would move that we move forward with the transition agreement with AdCom.
This is Scott. I second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to move forward with the AdCom transition agreement, phase 1. Any other discussion on this item?
Joe, this is Chet.
Yep.
I'm really getting some heartburn over time. I understand this. We go through that first portion to find out what we're going to do down the road, and it just, I'm nervous with that kind of an agreement. So I just want to put that out there.
Okay. Any other comments, questions? We have a motion and a second. Okay, if none, all those in favor say aye.
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 All right, those opposed?
Aye.
Okay, it sounds like if I heard correct, we had one opposed. Rachel, do you need a, we had a bit of a split. Do you need a actual count?
I don't think so. I'll count up who's on the meeting at the end.
Okay. Yeah, I believe if anybody else was opposed, speak up, but I believe Chet was the opposed vote.
The Lone Ranger.
Lone Ranger. Okay. Let's see, up next would be item 8, resolutions and motions. We have a draft bond resolution.
So I had this on the agenda for the last meeting, and we've done some additional work to this bond resolution. This will come back for the board for approval on October 14th at the October 14th meeting. I pulled up the first page of this bond resolution, and it shows a $16 million aggregate principal amount of not to exceed $16 million of bonds that would be issued. And working with our bond advisors, our underwriters, is that we could set any kind of number, well, not any kind of number, but within another 4 million, we could set that at $20 million to ensure that the bond is adequate for addressing all of the addressing potential bids that come in extra high, for example, that we wouldn't expect based on the cost estimates. And we agreed just to put just 16 to leave this at $16 million. And our construction estimate is still $15.5 million. And again, we're not getting bids back until later. So the recommendation was to set this a little bit more than what we're anticipating, just to ensure that we wouldn't have to pass another resolution to increase that in case we ran short, or if the bids came in higher than $16 million. But they felt pretty confident about this $16 million. It's probably good. So just something to think about, that if you were comfortable adding a couple $1 million, that we can make it 18 million. It does not mean that the cost of the center will be $18 million, but it does give us some flexibility if there was a need to issue a few more dollars worth of bonds. I use few relative term here. It just gives us some flexibility in that. So again, board's decision, but right now, kind of the recommendation is at $16 million. That's what would come back on October 14th.
Bill, this is Jim. In some of those purchases for Spillman and the AdCom agreement and stuff, are those also coming from the bond funds?
No, AdCom's coming, excuse me, Spillman is coming out of our budget that we already have approved for this 2020. So that payment's coming out of this. There are some, we can use the bond dollars to pay for this agreement, this transition agreement. Anything that's related to the planning and development and construction of the new facility can be charged, bonds can be charged back to the bonds.
So when you gave the 15.5 million, was it taking those things into consideration?
We don't have that transition agreement in that consideration of that 15. It's not included in that $15.5 million of construction costs. We do have about, I'll just leave it right there.
Well, I'm certainly not a bond expert like a couple of the folks here on the board. But we just approved a phase 1 agreement with an unknown amount of 4 more phases. It seems like we should have some cushion.
So Phil, this is Kurt. Looking at this bond resolution and listening to your comments, I am probably more of the mindset to say, if our bids come in at 20 million, we need to go back and look at the project in terms of the scaling of what we have and perhaps cut some things out. I would not be in favor of increasing this amount at this time. I'm sorry. I think we need to establish our upper limit and hope and pray that the bids come in and that the estimates that we have from the people who have been working on this are in fact, in that realm.
Yeah, I think, Kurt, that's a completely reasonable approach. Absolutely. I would agree. I tend to agree with what you're saying. We're just passing on some of the information that I got from our discussions with bond counsel and with our advisors.
And I appreciate that.
Hey, any other questions, comments from the board at this time? It sounds like we have a question before us, not just the resolution, but the notion of changing that 16 million number and increasing that to potentially 18 million. So any other questions or comments on that?
Bill, do you remember how much of the 15.5 million they have built in for contingency?
That's 10%.
Okay.
Okay, any other discussion, comments? I would be in favor of leaving it at the 16 million. I think I'm in agreement with what Kurt said, so.
This is Andy Hamilton, same here.
This is Chet, same here.
Okay, so far I'm hearing to leave it at the 16. If there's no other questions, comments, I would entertain a motion on the resolution.
Hey, Joe, you don't need a motion yet. This is just for the board's review. It won't come back for the board for consideration until October 14th.
Sorry, I see that date now. My apologies.
I just want to make sure that it's a complex document, something that we've never seen before. In most of our experiences, we're unfamiliar with these. I just wanted to make sure that we had it there for the board's review to the extent that any board member needed.
Thank you. Yep, I see the October date. So Yeah, I guess everybody has a chance to review that. If there's any further questions, hopefully those can be addressed. It sounds like I'm still hearing though that so far folks are in agreement with the 16 number.
Certainly as a cap, I'm hearing that it's a cap and that we don't want to have anything more than that, and we need to start adjusting the size of the project if it's in that range.
Yep, that's what I heard. Okay, if there's nothing else on item 8, then we could move on to the director's report.
So a number of things on the staffing update, and I guess, Joe, this is one of the things that you could do as your prerogative as a chair, is that one of the issues is the interim director. As for a staffing update, I could give that update, but that would likely need to be an executive session. Would you like to address that issue separately in executive session now, as and then come back and discuss that in the open board meeting? That would make, if the motion later was to accept a potential candidate for public employment, then we could, then that person could participate in the rest of the meeting in the executive session to understand clearly about what all the issues that we're facing.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. It seems like we want to, that'd be the best order of things, is to address that first. So I'm good with handling that in executive session now, if that works for you.
So for Rachel, would you?
Okay, as soon as you let everybody back in, then take it away, Phil.
And so, Chair, were you still wanting to, take action on this employment contract? I can put that up.
Yeah, I think that'd be the next
Okay.
appropriate discussion.
It's displayed on the screen. I also provided it to the primary board members last evening. Maybe I could ask this question that came up as a point of discussion, and partly for Bob, is that there's a responsibility as an employee to provide all those, Social Security payments and everything for the employer's sake. And at that $200 an hour, that's more of a contractor where you're taking care of all of that. Would there be some consideration of maybe adjusting that number a little bit to compensate, to adjust for that, or is that what? It's kind of it just was a point of discussion.
Yeah, I guess I'm inclined not to, but I'd have to go back and do the math on it a little bit,
okay,
and figure that out if that was really an area of contention that we need to deal with.
Well, I think that just put it out there. So
at this point, any further discussion or comment on the employment agreement? Or are we at a time when someone's ready to make a motion?
This is Chet.
Yep, go ahead, Chet.
I would make a motion to adopt shoot, that's the word I want to use. Adopt the employment agreement for our interim director as presented in this contract or agreement before us. Does that make sense?
Okay, I think we have a motion to approve the employment agreement as presented.
I'll second that with Alan.
Okay, and then Alan has seconded that motion. Is there other discussion at this time on this item? Okay, I'm not hearing any. So all those in favor say aye.
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 Are there any opposed? Okay, that motion passes.
So Chair, with your permission, I'll go ahead and continue on with our staff update.
Okay,
So now that we got the interim director brought on, thank you, Bob. Appreciate that. Bob has been actively learning about our operations here and learning the people, getting to know them and their functions and where their needs are, where their successes are. Spent a lot of time visiting with them about those needs, and we've been also, I've spent a lot of time with him in downloading all the information, the limited amount that my brain can carry anyway, to him so that he understands what I've been doing for the last 2 years. And I look forward to it being a very seamless transition. Bob has agreed to go ahead and assist with a recruitment of a successor and just kind of stabilize the ship and keep it sailing in the right direction during the transition phase here. And I'd like to welcome you aboard. And
Thank you. Well, looking forward to working with all of you aboard there. And I'll just correct Phil, I don't think it's stable. I think the ship's very stable as it is. I just, my 2 weeks here getting up to speed with everybody and talking to Zach, you got a great organization. And I think my role is just, you got some very significant initiatives on your plate right now. And I want to, they're well underway, but I just want to keep them going for you, not let anything fall through the cracks, and keep those going for you. And I'll worked with Prothman in the past on recruitments, and I know their organization very well doing that. And I think I can help keep moving that along, so you guys can hopefully get your new director here in short order and keep everything going there. But looking forward to working with y'all, and please reach out to me if things come up along the way here that I'm not attended to your satisfaction. Let me know, and I'll get to the bottom of it and respond to you accordingly. So looking forward to working with y'all.
Welcome aboard.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bob.
Yeah.
so some more staffing is that HR generalist recruitment is still continuing. We have 2 people that are in the background portion of the processing or the hiring process, and would look to potentially making an offer as early as next Tuesday if all things stay the same. And looking forward to that. I think we have a couple of really good candidates there, and look for real success there. During the transition time, Monique has agreed to stay till the end of the year, and she will be back and forth between remote and in on-site, transitioning with the new employee as needed to ensure that they have as much information and all the I's dotted, T's crossed that they can have to ensure a smooth transition in that area as well. As you know, we have continuing recruitment for dispatchers. We also have the benefits this time of the year. And so a lot of stuff at the end of the year here to be able to process. Really is a good time to bring on another HR generalist, and fully expect the candidate, either one of them, to be successful in that role. We're holding off on recruiting dispatcher positions, more timing it so that the onboarding happens with the time that Monique can transition with the new HR generalist, so that they can see all of the processes that she's employed for that successful onboarding. So that's it with staffing. Any questions? Thank you. Facility update. There's a number of things that are going on, but first of all, we're tying up the loose ends at the very end of construction documents here. The construction documents are supposed to be completed by September 30th and then be submitted for bid, or submitted for permitting shortly after. They'll also be going out for bid on October 8th with a return date of November 5th. There's some flexibility in that. If we get a lot of questions during the bid process, that can be extended sometime. That would just delay the construction start date. Clearly, if we didn't have that, but we want to have all of as much information, as many questions answered as possible for any of the contractors that might bid on this project, rather than them having any surprises by having a rushed bidding process. So there is some flexibility in that, and it doesn't affect anything other than the start date of construction. Bonding is still going forward. We touched on that a little bit earlier with the resolution for the bonds, but the sale for that would be expected if all things continue on the same following the bid opening, so that we kind of have an idea of where our bid's at in relative to what the dollar amount of our bonds need to be. And that bond sale is scheduled right now for December 3rd. Radio infrastructure, just signed documents last Friday for the construction to begin and acceptance of the latest bids. We're on budget. The numbers for the project is on target with our budgeted dollar amounts for that. And so looking forward to that. Our radio console project is complete. I will be signing that document in the next day or two to indicating the success of that radio console installation. Continue to work on climate and culture. It's just an ongoing thing, but I think there's some uneasiness right now with the transition from me leaving to what's going to happen going forward. The known is a lot easier to deal with than the unknown. We're in good shape. I think the staff is in really good shape. We have good people that are going to be able to keep things moving. There's no question in my mind that there were really everything will just be fine. And even though there's just a little bit uneasiness right now, and maybe a few people are just unsure of what the future looks like. That's to be expected. Any questions on any of those items that I addressed there?
I'm not hearing any, Phil.
Okay, good. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So item 10 on the agenda, I guess at the last meeting, I got tasked with trying to come up with a list of a recruitment team. So I haven't had a chance to verify with folks that I sort of named off here that, or will name off, if they're actually willing and available to be on the recruitment team. But so here's the names that I've got. So we just talked about Bob Gregory as the interim director. So he's on my list. Bob Schaefer as a guild representative. Let's see, from the fire side, Chief Lefebvre. Law side, Sheriff Thurman. And I also had Andy Hamilton on my list, as well as representing the admin team. I'd recommend either Deanna or Rachel. I know Deanna has a lot of the technical background and longevity, of course, at 911. So those are names I'm throwing out for a suggestion. Let me know if you want to, if you're not interested, if I mentioned your name and you absolutely are not interested, please say so. Hopefully you are. Or if the group wants to recommend somebody else, that's fine too. I just figure this is a starting point.
Joe, I'm okay with that. This is Andy.
Thank you, Andy.
I think you got a great list. That's Chet.
Okay, Chet, thank you. Anybody else whose name is on that list? Any thoughts on changing anybody out? Different suggestion? Chief Lefebvre, I thought your name was on the call. If you're still on here, are you okay?
Yep. I'll enjoy helping Bob get his legs under him too.
Thank you so much.
Those are gonna be some short legs.
Hey, careful about short legs.
Okay, and then Sheriff Thurman, you're good?
I am, thank you.
Let's see. Deanna, you're on the call, or are you okay? Oh, she typed in the chat box, okay. And I'm assuming, I don't know if Bob Schaefer, I don't think he's on the call, right, Phil? But I assume he's okay with the guild rep.
He is the guild rep, but I can touch base with him.
Okay. All right, super. Everybody's okay with that list. I don't know if you need Rachel or Phil, do you need a formal motion on that, or are we okay to just do this somewhat informally with that list?
I think it's your list. You're fine. If you're appointing them, that's good.
Okay. So I have Andy Hamilton, Chief LaFave, Sheriff Thurman, Deanna Wells, Bob Schaefer, and Bob Gregory. Anybody has any issues, speak now, or else that's the team. Okay. Thank you, everybody. And then so up next, we have looks like some other executive sessions needed.
Yeah, so there's a ground lease matter, real estate.
Who? No,
Yeah,
no, I know who Norm is. I'll take it.
Oh, I think you're unmuted, Andy.
Got it, sorry.
Go ahead, Phil.
interesting though. Yeah, so we have a potential or a lease agreement that I want to talk a little bit about in executive session. There's a matter that's a potential litigation and also public employment situation or a consideration for public employment.
Okay. And you have listed, so 10 minutes will suffice to start with?
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay. Okay, so we will, I guess, have to put folks back into the waiting room. If you're not a board member or an alternate or council, we'll give Rachel just a minute to do that.
They've been admitted and I'm starting the live stream.
Thank you, Rachel. Okay, so we are out of executive session. No decisions were made in executive session. I guess I'm at the will or pleasure of the board. You have, I guess, something to consider regarding recruitment of a new executive director. Potential agreement with Prothman. There's no.
I'm sorry, you're looking for a motion to move ahead with that?
Whenever somebody's ready, unless there's discussion further.
This is Scott. I make a motion to accept the proposal to provide recruitment services for Cowlitz 911's next executive director from Prothman.
Second from Chet.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the proposal to provide recruitment services for the executive director position. Is there any other discussion at this time?
This is Kurt. Joe, I'm just going to let everyone know now I'm going to be voting against this proposal. I do have worked with Prothman in the past and we just had a bad experience. I'll just leave it at that. And those are my reasons. I know we've had good experiences prior. You know, we've used them on several occasions over the years. Obviously, my term here at Longview is long, but most recently, I had a we had a poor experience, and for that, I can't support this directive. But if the board chooses to, I understand. And overall, I think it's a good proposal, but it's just based upon an experience that I've had myself.
Okay, thank you, Kurt.
Yeah.
Any other discussion, questions, comments before we take the vote?
I guess I'm just, Kurt, can you elaborate a little bit, or is that?
You know, I would say in the experience, what it really dealt with was it was a top level department chair here within the city, and rather than bring us, you know, candidates for the board's review, the department's review on an equal playing field, I felt as almost it was a solicitation of one individual, and as though the recruiter had selected the candidate and said, "Here you are. This is your person," and even went so far as to try to negotiate the contract for him.
Okay.
Mhm.
This is Brett. I had a question maybe for the chairman. It looks like a pretty aggressive timeline for getting this going. Does the salary that we're going to be offering, does that need to be decided by the board quickly to get that in place for the recruitment?
I guess the salary range, was there a change to that, Phil?
The board has never adopted a salary schedule for the director.
Okay.
And it was based on the previous scale was up to $120,000 during the recruitment for when I was hired. And I think it was like 95 to 120 then. This is $2 amounts that they used on two previous recent recruitments, and so it's probably the market value now. But you still have that range of 105 to 135.
We're talking about recruitment.
Okay, so is there something that, I mean, you feel like the agreement spells out or is sufficient in what we are, I guess, putting out there? Does the board need to make a change or take some sort of formal improvement on that, on a dollar number? I think that's what the sheriff was asking.
Because whatever you feel comfortable in compensating somebody for.
If I can jump in, Joe, I was impressed by the recruitment information that was provided by Prothman for the two searches they've done this past year. For one was out of Moses Lake, the other was out of Ellensburg, and seemed to be very similar size organizations. And I think the salary range posted on those were 105 to 130. So if that's the going rate in the market we're in, I'd suggest or throw that out as a starting point for a range.
Okay. I guess, so do you want to, is that a motion?
Yeah, I'll make that as a motion. We could post it as that a range of 105 to 130,000.
You have to either take this as an amendment or an add, or because you do have an existing motion to accept it.
Yeah, so I guess that would be a motion that would be made as an amendment to the proposal.
We'll make it as an amendment.
Okay. Thank you, sure. Is there a second on that amendment?
Yeah, I'll second that. Alan.
So the amendment would to make the salary range as part of the recruitment 105 to 130.
That's my understanding.
Okay.
Okay, so we have a motion, and we have an amendment now regarding the salary to change it from 105 to 130,000, 105,000 to 130,000 as the, I guess, the range.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Chad.
Thank you. I do recall what Kurt's talking about. And I wonder if it's possibility to not have that person again, because it didn't work the way it was supposed to. I was really disappointed in it. So I don't know if we can pick the person or say, well, we don't want this person, or I don't know how that goes.
Well, we
It's
can
just a-
repeat that, Kurt, Chet. When we open up discussion with them, Bob and I have had a little bit of discussion about this already. And, not with any specifics, but anyway, as far as the lead is identified here as Greg Prothman, that we could insist that Greg is the lead and he's present for the this event or however that is. But I think those concerns are heard by both me and Bob, and with Bob probably shepherding this through, I think he's kind of aware of the situation as it might be, just as referenced, and we'll be able to adjust or address that so that it's not a problem in the recruitment.
Great. Thanks, Phil.
As Brad Thurman, a couple of things. I saw in the proposal from Prothman that they had identified a Sonia Prothman as the lead on the project. Is that correct, Phil? And was she the wife of Mr. Prothman, or?
I think the lead is Greg, right?
I thought Sonia was mentioned.
So on this way, Sonia is the project support. So I have it on my screen right now. Greg Prothman's the project lead, and then all the rest are project support. And I don't know the relationship.
I believe Sonia is the daughter.
Okay. And one thing, if I could amend my amendment, I stand corrected on the salary range on those two other centers they recruited for was 105 to 135,000. So I'd amend my motion to match that.
Yeah, and I think I second it. I would agree with that.
Okay, so we have a amendment proposed to change the salary range from 105,000 to 135,000. That would be the new range. And we have a second from Alan. So is there any other discussion on the proposed amendment? If there is none, we'll go ahead and take a vote on that amendment. All those in favor say aye.
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 Is there any opposed to that amendment? Okay, hearing none, the amendment is approved, it passes. So now we're back to the main motion on the approval of the agreement with Prothman. Any further discussion on the original motion? Okay, if there is none, just checking the chat real quick. Nothing in the chat box that I can see. So all those in favor say aye.
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 Is there any opposed?
Aye. Kurt.
Kurt is opposed. All right, that motion does pass. Okay, anything else? I think we're at the end of the agenda. Anything else for the good of the order that we need to address? Okay, if there is nothing, thank you everybody for the time logging in. Have a good day, and I guess